Who's that man?
He is risen. He is risen. Kia ora whānau. How are you all? Hey, Chewy.
How you doing, man? How you feeling?
I'm there. I'm getting there. I'm not right, and so I'm already. Well, I'll talk more about this shortly, but I'm still taking it easy this week. But as compared to last week, I'm well. I'm really well. So look, this is the most excited I've been about. Thanks, Brad. Most excited I've been about doing a show since we started this thing, whatever it is, 270-ish episodes ago. Because I've missed you all, and it's genuinely I've missed it. I've missed this a lot, and I've missed talking about stuff, and I've missed learning from you guys, and I've missed talking to you, Chewy. We've been talking, off. People may not believe this, but me and Chewy do sometimes talk when there's not a camera and each of our faces go into the internet. It does happen occasionally as well. So I've been really missing this, but I've also been doing what's best for me, and I have to say, many of you guys basically said, stay the fuck home. This isn't important. And I was really, 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 really happy and quite touched actually for the number of people, and it wasn't insignificant, that basically said, we have an important job to do this year. We meaning you watching us here in the show. And so we need our strength for the rest of the year. So go away, Pat, get better, and come back. So that idea of me seeing other people finding value in what we're doing, and that idea of other people seeing value in, what we're going to do this year leading up to the election, it was really, really nice. I know that, Chewy, you got, a big kick out of that as well, because, I don't want to go big quite as dramatic. It's like, people, they say you should see some people speaking at your funeral before you die. But there's an element of, these things come out when you've had a bit of a hiccup, a bit of an emergency. And that idea of how important this is to a very small slice of the population and how important it's going to be this year was really nice to hear. But I think the answer is okay, Joe. I'm doing okay.
Like Vin Diesel said, it's about family.
Yeah, it is. It's been really good. I'll tell you what, I've been sitting in my big comfy chair. Many people will have seen the video I put out last week when I finally pulled the plug on the week. Watching lots of content, seeing some really good movies. Pope's Exorcist. Holy crap.
That's what I haven't seen.
Good. I'm, of course, growing up Catholic. So, growing up Catholic under Pope John Paul II, who's a character in the movie. Holy crap. Pope's Exorcist. Amazing. Really, really good. Disney Plus has got that Ed Sheeran 4-part documentary series. Amazing. Like you wouldn't believe how amazing. It's really based around him and his career and his lead up to his latest album. But in episode 2, it reveals one of his close mates dies, like a guy that actually gave him his break dies, I think, of a cocaine and alcohol overdose. And then the last 3 episodes are almost a tribute to his dead friend. If you watch that 4-part documentary series and you don't shed a tear or at least get moist, then you are not a human being. So hate Ed Sheeran, love Ed Sheeran, the new series on Disney Plus. I watched all 4 episodes in one day. I mean, I had the time to, but I couldn't not go to the next episode. It's one of those. It's just amazing. And the other one, Chewy, Tetris, Apple TV movie, Tetris, about
yes, surprisingly good.
Yeah.
Yes, I watched that. I enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah.
And just the like, it took a real hard turn into basically an espionage movie.
Yeah.
And I was screaming with laughter for that chase scene at the end. I won't give anything else away, but
the 70s chase scene. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
So good. Had no rights to be as good as it was.
And look, for me, I've been sleeping in the afternoons. I've had some pretty rough days with my physical health and what my body was doing after going through an operation. I'm actually going to talk about this. That next kind of is our first story, so I'll get into that shortly. But yeah, good to be back, and thank you for all the kind words. And I guess if there's nothing else, Chewy, to get into it, is there anything else? Is there anything else you want to say? Oh, the one thing.
No, just that it was selfish of you to do this
in that week of news.
In a week that was just absolutely packed with news. Like, and I just said there was something that I noticed today. Like, we talked about Duncan Garner and Today FM and that sort of thing. So two things that have come out of that just today, right? Duncan Garner's copying us. He's got a fucking podcast.
Yeah, but you know, have you seen what he's doing radio on the internet? He's going to have Wanker of the Week. It's like, honestly, I don't want to have any disrespect to those guys. I know the guys from Rover and that, but there is a difference between doing a podcast or a live stream broadcast and doing radio. And lots of the mainstream radio organizations, what they do is they make radio for the internet. And there is a difference. Trust me, there is a difference between those two things.
And then the other part of that is the station that they've put up on Today FM's frequencies.
Yeah,
which is kind of like, we're doing radio for Gen X, but without announcers. So it's just like, okay, you're just holding the frequency and playing old music. Gotcha.
Well, I don't know if I'll go with announcers. I think they should get to someone who's like in their 40s who grew up through radio and loves music from the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s.
Right.
That'd be a good announcer for that show.
Right, absolutely. And I was like, what a great opportunity to bring back Channel Z.
Yeah. Anywho, so lots going on. And look, to be honest, tonight's show a little bit is going to be a bit of a catch-up. The Stephen Crowder story that we're going to talk about tonight is actually last week's news, but because Chewy and I sort of made a couple of comments before all the story came out, and then the comments we made were sort of proven to be true, we feel like we just want to wrap it up, even though it was last week. And what I've got is a bunch of stuff to show you, all little quick bits, not too long on it, to give you a full rounded situation. And it's really interesting to see how often these people who are in positions of power and profess a moral authority then are completely failed in that moral area themselves. And that's part of the interesting conversation around Stephen Crowder and many other people in that world. And then we'll have a look at the Republican thing later on tonight. Really interesting comments by Christopher Luxon on BBC over the weekend about, he's being straight up. He's like, yep, no, if it was, okay, I'm paraphrasing, but he's basically saying, yep, I'd go with the Republic, but there's not a, the words jumped out of my head. There's not a feeling for it in the country right now. So Christopher Hipkins is basically saying, I'd be in for a republic, but he goes, but that's not what the people want. That's basically what he said.
Yeah, there isn't a groundswell movement for it. But I'd love to get my teeth into that particular story. I keep my powder dry.
Before we do, I want to say thanks as well, because I think we had about 4 people sign up to Patreon whilst I was off. I'm not entirely sure how that worked. Obviously, some people found us through something, or they decided they were lurkers, as people sometimes call themselves, and they decided to jump. So Evan Tate became a coffee runner. White Mouse became a coffee runner. JN,
good
who's
name.
Actually, yeah, JN, I know, for the spy, JN, who is obviously with us quite often in chat here, joined in with Phil. And I think I mentioned Kimberly and DIY Guru last time, because I think they just signed up before that, and Tony as well, but they're the last few. And actually Kellyanne was in there fairly recently as well. So if you're interested in becoming a part of what we do here, and like, enabling us to go off to Fiji for a week and pretend that we're in hospital, then, what you can do that is to head to patreon.com/Big Hairy News. Pretty simple, really, but we do appreciate it. And look, I have to say, one of the Patreon payments went through over the weekend, and it just makes everything just a little bit easier. You might think your $5 or your $8 or your $15 or your $100 to our senior producer makes little difference, but there's an old adage about you bring your best parts to the storehouse, and that's all about what you do is that then enables people to bring together a whole lot of small parts, because we are greater than the sum of our parts, and we bring our small parts together, and that enables us to have a big part, which actually enables us to do things. And when it comes to finances, every $5 here and there and there and there and there helps pay for this software that we're using to do this thing for you guys, and the internet that it's on, and the video card that I had to buy to get the computer upgraded. So thank you, and thank you for joining and being a part of it. We really do appreciate it. Right, so let me just start really quickly. I'm going to try and go through this quite quickly, but I know many of you kind of know the story, or I wanted to give you the details. So you actually know this if you're a regular viewer, and Chewy, you know this because someone told me I probably had a stomach ulcer. Remember that conversation we had on this show?
Oh, yeah.
That I'd explained about 3 or 4 months ago that I'd gone to the hospital with these torso pains that had gone up into my chest. Now, they weren't chest pains, but they kind of had spread out. And so when you go to the hospital, they hear chest pain and they go, panic! And so they checked out everything and everything came back fine, and they sent me home saying it was indigestion. And that's fine. It happened a few more times between then and the weekend just gone. And eventually, because it had happened 2 or 3 more times, this pain, it's an excruciating pain, like rolling around on the bed, not being able to talk, not being able to function, feeling like I need to go to the bathroom, not being able to go, feeling like I want to throw up, not being able to throw up, just excruciating pain. Like people who have had babies often say, it's as painful as having a baby, which I haven't had, but you know, that's what you often hear about various stones being passed. So eventually I went to my doctor, like I went to my doctor 2 or 3 times, and it happened 2 or 3 more times. And I was like, oh, I drink a lot of like Pepsi Max. And I was like, I could feel when I drank too much Pepsi Max that this discomfort would come on, and then this pain would come on. So for about the past month, people have seen this. I got a message saying, stop drinking sport drinks. This is actually water. That's just water is all that is. I just have it in a can down here.
Fancy water.
Fancy water. But I haven't been drinking Pepsi for a month. None of this sort of stuff, but it still has been occurring from time to time. So eventually I went to the doctor and I said, I want to figure out what to do. They talked about putting I nearly said a microscope, and then I said telescope, camera down my throat to have a look what's going on. That got sent off to the public health sector. They didn't say no, but they came back saying, we want to keep monitoring it. So let's keep monitoring it. If it happens again, we'll figure out how to book it in. Summary. It happened again. And then I went and investigated, because I'm lucky enough to have private health insurance. I went and investigated my private health insurance, and this was 2 weeks ago now. And they said, yep, we would cover that for you. So just book it in and get it done. So that was like the Wednesday before I went into hospital, because I had an episode on the Thursday, which was really bad. And then I broadcast this night show. You remember this? And I told you about it afterwards. And you said to me, oh, I've had gallstones before. That sounds a bit like gallstones. And I'm like, oh, yeah, but they would have picked up on that. It had been gallstones. So, you know, we'll see. So that Friday morning, I phoned the doctor and I booked in to have an appointment the following Tuesday. And I was just going to say, just refer me to the specialist. Insurance will pay for it. Just refer me. And that's what we'll do, right? That Sunday morning, 1:30, so this is last Sunday, so 8 days ago now, I didn't get to the Tuesday appointment. That Sunday morning, 1:30 in the morning, I wake up with these pains. And these pains have been basically almost, you'd be able to time it that at 4 hours, it would then be gone. So I was like, oh, crap, I'm going to be up all night with excruciating pain, but that's okay because I'm going to the doctor's on Tuesday. The one thing I didn't say is the one thing that had started up on the Thursday, so those last 2 episodes, was I was also getting cold sweats and chills, which I hadn't had before. So on the Thursday, I was in my big chair, and I'd normally just be in my chair like in shorts and a t-shirt or even a blanket over me. I couldn't get warm, so I ended up having, socks, my merino, a hoodie, my mum's woolen blanket, a duvet on top of me, and that was when I could get warm enough. I had all that on top of me to get warm. Then on Sunday morning when I woke up again, I couldn't get warm, and I sleep with an electric blanket, and the electric blanket was on 2, which I sometimes have it on. If I put it on 3, I start to sweat. I had to put it up onto 5. So when I put it up onto 5, I'd then stop getting cold. So something had changed. So I was up through the night Sunday morning. I got to about 4:30, 5 in the morning, and I finally got up out of bed and I went to the lounge just to watch telly, thinking, this is nearly over. 6:30 rolls around, the pain is exactly the same. And I'm sitting there in the chair going, oh, crap, what do I do? Do I go to the hospital again? I know what they're going to do. They're going to go, oh, it's indigestion, and, we can't do anything about it. And half an hour later, I'm going to feel fine. But I thought, no, I'm going to go. I'm going to go anyway. So I went and woke up my partner and I said, I'm Kiwi blokes, I'm going to go to the hospital, thinking I'll just go jump in an Uber and go to hospital. And she was like, right, up she gets and takes me in and kind of drops me off and comes in for a bit, but then heads off. And then that was so this is Sunday morning, 6:30 a.m., 8 days ago. They start doing and investigating. The pain won't go away. I'm getting morphine and the pain won't go away. And eventually, through the next kind of 4 or 5 or 6 hours, they ran an ultrasound over me, little small portable one. And the nurse in the A&E said, oh, you might have a stone in your gallbladder. Okay. All right,
Dr. Chewy had already diagnosed that.
We found something. So I wasn't too particularly concerned about it. Toing and fro, what it's like at AE, toing and froing. And then I ended up going and getting a proper ultrasound. If any of you have had kids out there, the big one for the pregnant women. I'm not pregnant, to make that clear. But they spent like 20 minutes, like really, really full on looking with the ultrasound. And then I came back to A&E, and then the surgeons came down because the first person had said there might be a stone. They'd informed the surgery team. The surgery team then came back and they said, look, we think you've got a stone. We think it's in this part of the gallbladder. So the gallbladder is a bladder. There's a tube that goes from the liver to the pancreas, I think it is, and then there's a bladder off to the side. Now that liver is producing bile all the time, so I've still got that tube, right? That still drip. So what happens when you have a really fatty meal is that the gallbladder goes quick, and it gives it a bit more juice to deal with the meal, right? And they thought the stone might be somewhere in one of the connectors, like it was in there. So the surgeon came back through and they said, look, we haven't got the results back from the ultrasounds yet, but we're pretty sure you've got a stone, so we're going to admit you and we'll figure out what we're going to do later on. So, we'll figure it out, what we'll do later on, and that'll be fine. So they admitted me, and pretty much after they admitted me, the results came back through, the surgeons came back through, and they went, your gallbladder is full of stones and it's incredibly infected, and we're taking your gallbladder out. And I'm like, okay, sure, we can do that. So that was Sunday mid to late afternoon. No appointments on the Sunday night to get into the surgery. So went in on the Monday afternoon. That's when they could finally see me. And was an hour operation. Took 2 hours. And I woke up and it was quite late in the afternoon. I was a bit kind of, you're befuddled anyway, but I was a bit kind of extra befuddled because the time frame didn't work in my head. Because straight away I'm a guy and I go, numbers. Hey, those numbers don't work. And they told me afterwards that the gallbladder was incredibly infected, and they actually had to. So I've had keyhole surgery, so I've got 5 holes in me still. Well, they're not holes, but where they were. They had to open it a bit wider. It was so big to get it out. It was incredibly infected. It was the surgeon actually used the term gangrenous. Now I spoke to the nurse about that, and I said, did they just use that as a descriptor? Because gangrene means the skin's dead or the tissue's dead. Or are they just using it as a descriptor, meaning it was all real green and revolting? And the nurse said, yeah, it was probably a descriptor. And they took it out. And it took twice as long to get out. So I was beaten up even a bit more. I was in for another 24 hours. And then I kind of came home. And then the next 2 or 3 days, I basically couldn't eat and couldn't hold anything in. Lost 6 kilos in 6 days, which was, I'm on a bit of a plan anyway. I didn't intend on losing them like that. And that really only stopped on Saturday afternoon. So came home Tuesday, was pretty rough pretty much all the way through till Saturday afternoon. And from then I've been starting to feeling a bit better. So that was my journey. I know we do a news show here, and this is not really a news story, but there are lots of people who are interested. It does going to tie into something about the health system I want to talk about. So some things that I learned. So the gallbladder delivers bile that deals with fat. Right? For those of you who have been watching us for a long time, you know that I've been on a health kick for the last year. Thanks to this week, I'm now at about 63 kilos that I've lost. But apparently, the gallbladder, it's a very common occurrence for someone who's had, what's it called, like a lap band surgery. I haven't had that. I've just been on a food plan. But I found out on the weekend that people who lose a lot of weight also often get stones, because basically the gallbladder is still dealing with fat. It's just not dealing with fat you're eating, it's dealing with fat you're burning. So it's a very common occurrence for people who have gone through a large weight loss to also get some kind of stones as well. So obviously if you've got an unhealthy diet, you might have stones, and then you go through this big weight loss, it might cause more stones. There's probably a double up. And I never knew that. I never knew that was a thing until the weekend just gone. But that's
I've had issues with gallstones before, and that's why it sounded very familiar to me when you were describing it last week. And I was like, oh, that sounds very familiar. And for anyone that hasn't had to deal with it, it is literally feels like you're having a heart attack.
Yeah.
Your chest feels tight. You got pain under your shoulder blades, all of that sort of stuff, and it will literally hit you in the middle of the night. And yeah, I'm someone that doesn't generally like to go to the doctor or the hospital or anything like that, and that had me going, oh fuck, maybe I should go. But yeah, it was a change of diet. I haven't had anything like that for ages. And just recently with some issues with kidney stones, I also have cut out like energy drinks, which for someone that works in retail and doesn't drink coffee, I'm surprised they haven't killed anyone. But it's incredibly effective. Like I just haven't had any issues since. But yeah, to get to the stage of having it out instantly in a public hospital, people love to bag on the hospital.
Well,
they love to bag on
this is a part of the conversation. Now, I've always said, like, I'm not rose tinted glasses about the hospital now. We've always said, and I've always said this publicly, that if you have an emergency, New Zealand's public health system is fucking awesome, right? If you've got an ongoing and long term thing, it can be harder because there are queues. But I had an emergency. I actually forgot to bring this up. I think this is the right one. I'll show you this. I found this just purely over the weekend. I want to talk to our American friends as well. This is a TikTok from someone who is American but living in New Zealand now. She gets told because she doesn't have the subsidy at the chemist, she has to pay full rates going to the chemist in New Zealand. So because she's not a Kiwi citizen, she's got to go to the chemist and get her drugs and pay full rates. It's only a TikTok. It's only 30 seconds. Let me play it for you. If this is going to play, maybe it's not going to play. Oh, anyway, I didn't have that queued up. That's why it's not good to go. She basically is telling the story to her American friends, and she laughs because when they tell her it's going to be full rates, it's $89 or it's $69 for her 4
outrageous.
Yeah, and so she's laughing to all her American friends, going, she was expecting to pay several $100s, and it was. And the people at the chemist are going, look, I'm sorry, but there's no subsidy on this, and she's like $89. Actually, it might have been $69. And what I also wanted to say is I've done a bit of a tot up as to what this would have cost. It's probably 10 grand plus. So this is probably $10,000 to $15,000 worth of care. And I just wanted, I'm not saying there's any perfect system, but for me in that moment, I'm a little bit pissed that my insurance company gets to keep me as a client and not have to fork out anything because it was done through as an emergency. But, that's what we've got the system for. And
when it comes to the emergency department and that sort of thing, one thing has always stuck with me, right? Because people go in and they go, it took me ages to get seen and that sort of thing. If you're sitting in emergency and you've been there for ages, be thankful because you've really got worries if you walk in and they go, oh, yep, cool, straight in. That means it's serious. You're getting triaged.
Yeah.
If you go into emergency for a stub toe or something, you're going to be there for days.
Yeah. Yeah, no, look, so I'm very lucky. So it did end up being a bit of an emergency. It's fascinating to think about what happened. I said to the someone in the hospital, doctor or nurse the next day, if it was really infected, why aren't I on antibiotics? And they went, because we took all the infection out. Yep. And I'm like, and part of me, and I actually said to the nurse, I went like, if my hand was infected and my hand was cupped inside my other hand like this for weeks on end, I would expect this hand to have got some of this infection, but apparently not. Apparently they took it out, and with it, they took all the infection out with it. And I'm lucky. I'm lucky we live here. I'm lucky that I'm just able to go and get it done. It's done. It was, I've had several people say to me, how you feeling? And my response to that is always, well, I always think about what's my foundation, my unchangeable foundation. So for my unchangeable foundation, which is very badly infected gallbladder full of stones, I'm doing fucking well. If my foundation was, a year ago when I had no impact from it, I'm pretty rough. But from the foundation that I can't change, which was that, I'm fine. I'm all good. I just need to do a quick check. And Time to Fly wants to know as well. It's not sitting up on the shelf behind you, is it? I actually asked for photos. They said, because I told them what I was doing, and I said, they actually asked me if I wanted it. And I said no. And they said, because they had some students in there, and they said, so we'll be recording it. And I said, I'd like a copy of that. And I think they thought I was joking, because the next day I asked the nurse, can I get a copy of that? But it's never come through, so I'm not going to chase that. I'm not going to chase it. Now, let me say this. That could have been a Friday special. This came up whilst I was recovering, and I put a tweet out about it, and it's last week's news, but I want to bring it to our attention again. So this is something that Christopher Luxon said, right? And this is last week. I said on Tuesday night, I said on Monday night, no show tonight. I said on Tuesday night, no show tonight. I was pushing for Wednesday night, and then I kind of realized it's not going to happen. So this is still me when I was kind of thinking, we'll get into it tomorrow night, but I didn't. So over the weekend, last weekend, Luxon said this. In the last 5 years, under Labour, almost 19,000 nurses have left the public health system. He then changed that, because that's not correct too. We've had 17,000 nurses give up their nursing certificates since 2019. Now that's true, but that's only half the story, because it doesn't count for the new nurses that have come on board. So the truth is, we've also had 11,759 new nurses get New Zealand practitioning certificates. I spelled it wrong. I put SONCE since 2019, including 4,180 last year. Now, many things about that. The first thing is, when any person, group, or individual has to give out bad information, it means one of two things. They're either lying or they don't have the right information. Both of those outcomes are not okay. Because do you know what? The difference between 17,000 nurses and 12,000 nurses, he could have still said we've lost 5,000 nurses. That's still a concern, right? That's 1,000 nurses a year. That's still a concern. No question about that. But when Mr. Luxon comes out and fudges the numbers or doesn't know the numbers, I always ask why. Why is he giving out bad numbers to make it look worse than it is? It's a concern. The second thing that I thought, and some people watching this are gonna think I'm being dramatic over this, it does steep to me of xenophobia. Because what it feels like to me is Mr. Luxon is saying, we're losing all these Kiwi nurses. And to me, that means the ones that look like me. And to me, it means the ones who are white. I got looked after by Filipino, by Indian, by Fijian nurses. It was like the fucking United Nations of accents. And when I heard Luxon say that, and I'm sure if you posed this question to him today, he wouldn't say this, but it felt like we've lost all these white nurses. And the reason it felt like that is he's given no credit to the new nurses who have come on board, many of which have melanin in their skin and are international. So it really, really, really fucked me off. And for obvious reasons, I took it pretty personally, Chewie.
Yeah. Now, I've had my hand smacked by people in this conversation as well, because I've often said the point of, like, if our nurses we're training nurses and they're being lured overseas, then obviously we're not paying them what they're worth.
Yeah.
And we're having to import nurses in. Now, someone saw that and saw red and came at me. And to be honest, fair enough. They were sort of basically saying that I was taking that same position, that our Kiwi nurses are better than anybody that can come in overseas. It wasn't my angle at all. It was just the inefficiency of the pipeline that we set up, right? And my sister's a nurse, so it's something that I follow quite closely. But yeah, the whole thing is, like, one of my friends on Twitter, he's a nurse, and he said, and all of these comments, his social media is flooded with targeted ads that he can go tomorrow and go work in any state in Australia and basically get half as much again in his pay packet. He could go to Canada and get basically double and work wherever he wants in whatever field he's able to. And it's like, that's what you're competing against. And when you're talking about guys that are coming from business and you know, the invisible hand of the market, that's what the thing. You're underselling our own jobs. You're not paying these people what they're worth, they're worth in the open market. So that's what we're doing wrong. And just like we've said before, the answer to the question that they're answering is wrong. Like, it's not like, how do we, you know, we can't afford this. Yes, you can. You're just not getting to the thing of, like, you need to have the money to pay for them and you need to tax the wealthy. That all comes back to that.
Well, the other thing is, I don't know if you've seen the news tonight, Joey. I'm not talking about it tonight. We might pick it up on later in the week. Every armed service person is getting a pay increase to keep them in New Zealand, because we've lost 18,000 or 15% of them or something in the last few years. Every person who works in the Army, Navy, Air Force is going to be getting an increase. I think they said 90% is going to get an increase between 4,000 and 15,000 per year. $15,000 is $300 more a week. And I think that's great. But my first response is, what about nurses? What about teachers? Like, if it's as easy as that, what about nurses?
Yes.
What about teachers?
The military pay packets thing and the whole review that they've done there has been something that's been in the pipeline for 20 years. And as someone that has spent some time in military facilities and, like, in Wairau and Ohakea, and Woodburn and that sort of thing. God, if you get into the base housing or the barracks there, yes, they are World War II vintage.
Yeah.
And do you know what we didn't have back then? Insulation. It
Yeah.
sucks. And these guys are living in really crappy conditions and asked to do a hard job and getting bullshit pay. So, I mean, it's the same thing, right? Nobody wants to raise taxes. Nobody wants to fund the things that we want. And then we go, why is everybody disappearing?
Yeah.
That's why.
All we need our journalists with access to these politicians to say is when they start pointing the bone, I don't care whether it's a National Party MP pointing the bone at Labour or a Labour Party MP pointing the bone at National and criticising them, all I want to know is, what are you going to do? So it's all very good, Mr. Luxon, sitting on, I think it was the breakfast couch all those months ago, talking about the nurses, leaving our shores. But then it might have been with Jack Tame. But then when challenged, would you pay them more, not committing to it? So no, what are you going to do? How are you going to keep the nurses here? Like that's all I want to know. How?
The other thing that fucked me off, getting back to this number that has been bandied around. Dr. Shane Reddy said it. Christopher Luxon said it. And then the Minister of Health, Aisha Verrell, came out and said, actually, they asked me about those numbers. They ran them past me to make sure that they're correct. And I corrected them.
Yes, that's right.
And said, hey, look, that's people moving around within the health system to different jobs. That's the total churn. We haven't lost all of those nurses. And they still ran with it.
Well,
because it's the thing.
That was the difference between the 17 and the 19,000.
Yeah.
That was the difference between those. Yeah, but you're right. She said that she had corrected them, given them the right numbers. So again, that means they either did it on purpose to mislead, or, and I'll be a bit blunt because this is what a podcast is supposed to be, Mr. Garner, they're too fucking stupid to read the numbers. They're the only two possibilities. They either did it on purpose or they're not smart enough to figure out what the numbers actually are. There's no other possibility.
And that brings us back to the core thing. National, bad at numbers. They are bad at numbers. And whether it's malicious or whether it's stupid, it comes back to the same thing. They did this last election. They've come out with a scandalous big number that falls apart when someone blows on it.
Or both, as JK said.
Yeah.
They did it on purpose and they're too stupid to know the numbers. Possibly. Or else what it is, and this is, you always hear about these leaders being, leader of this and leader of that, and, I get a good team around me. Or what it is it's relying on your underling to get it right, and then you're just spouting off the points that are given to you on a piece of paper. That's also not good leadership. It's like what comes out of your mouth needs to be what's coming out of your mouth. So, yes, anywho, I can feel my stomach. I can feel the achiness there. It's I haven't been this animated in in 10 days, so it's been more like this.
That's why I'm trying to do the outraged heavy lifting for you here, Pat.
So guys, that was my story, but as I said, I do relate it to something that's going on in the industry at the moment, and I think today's announcement about the Defence Force is really interesting because when if National wants to now point the finger at Labor saying, look at all the Defence Forces, Labor can go, yeah, but we're rectifying that. We're going to keep them by paying them more. What are you going to do, National, about the nurses? What are you going to do about the teachers? Because the last time Luxon was asked that question, he refused to commit to paying them more. He refused. I'll have to find that. Maybe what I'll start doing is getting a bunch of clips and having them up there so we can remind ourselves what happens in this political cycle.
Labor aren't doing enough.
They go screaming past, and then it becomes yesterday's news, and you're on to the next thing. Maybe I need to start a bit of a database of these clips just to go, remember people, remember when Mr. Luxon said to Jack Tame that they're going to give tax cuts and it's going to be the same inflationary pressure, so it's not going to fix the problem. He admitted it would be the same, but he was blaming Labor for the inflation, and then what he was going to do would cause the same inflation. Just remember that. We can't forget that, and these sorts of things.
Yeah. That Labor's not doing enough. It's not enough for these hard-working nurses. Oh, okay, you're going to do something better? No, I'm going to hide behind this chair because you asked me the question. Because the answer is we need to tax people more, and then that becomes you can't tax everybody more. No, the best way we can go after is the wealthy people, but they are the people that donate to us. So we're not going to do that. And just to not let Labor off the hook here, right? These guys have gone all the way through a global pandemic and they've gone, our pay's not great. Can we please have some more? And rather than Labour going, abso-fucking-lutely,
whatever you want, lads.
They haven't. Yeah. And this is for, like, when you're talking about donors and supporters and that sort of thing, the nurses union is solidly Labour. And they're not getting what they're asked for. And I think that's, with everything that we've gone through in the last, 10, 15 years? Is that how long this pandemic's gone on for?
Like 25, I think.
Yeah. That they deserve what they ask for. Yeah. I don't care how you do it. Just do it. Just pay them what they're worth.
We're going to keep trucking, guys, because we've got other things to talk about, because there's something else that I want to cover off. And this is actually old news, I get that. But because me and Chewy touched on it quite heavily the last time we were together, and then more information has come out, I think it's appropriate just to recap. This is when me and Chewy were talking about the Stephen Crowder situation. And for those of you who don't know who Stephen Crowder is, he's a very big American right-wing talk. He kind of does what we do, but he's successful financially. Kind of.
I don't know about that. That shirt's too small for a start.
He's got 5 million subscribers. He turned down a deal from what's his name? I was going to say Ben Simmons. No, the facts not feelings guy. I can't think of his name. Yeah. One of Joe Rogan's mates. I can't think of his name. Ben Shapiro. He turned down a $50 million contract from Ben Shapiro's company. So yeah, he's okay. He's doing all right. But he had this conversation where, and I'm going to go through these to make sure everyone's informed, because we would have done this the days after, but I just want to wrap up the story that we started. We broke this to the world, apparently, because he made this statement about his marriage, and we thought it was peculiar that he talked about abuse. Listen to what he says. The things that he says and the things that he offers without any prompting, like he says in this first clip, there was no physical abuse. And I just thought, that's a really weird thing to offer without being prompted. Like just to offer it. Chewy, if I said to you, and look, be really clear, I'm not making any accusations here, but if I said to you, Chewy, that I just broken up with my partner, and with no prompting, I went, but there was I didn't hit her. Like, just offering it from nowhere. It's just, I'm not saying that's what happened here, but it's a peculiar thing to say. He also makes it very clear there was no infidelity. And then he starts to talk about the state of Texas. And he's almost describing the state of Texas like it's this woke, ridiculous place that even allows women to make their own choices. So we'll play this clip first of all, then I'll get your thoughts on this, Joey.
I have been living with a proverbial boot on my neck for going on years now.
Sounds hot.
Since 2021, I've been living through what has increasingly been a horrendous divorce. Now, let me say on the outset, to be clear, there is no infidelity, any kind of physical abuse at all on either side.
That you just offer that.
And no, this was not my choice.
Right. So that was what we talked about. And so we were it was quite peculiar as to what happened. Right. We just thought that was a really strange thing to offer. And to their credit, and I want to say it was actually Gareth in the chat. I can't remember. But someone in the chat said, there's more to come. And I was like, and we were like, yeah, maybe there's more to come. Maybe this is getting
set your watch.
Set your watch. So I wanted to bring up a couple of other things that have come to my memory since doing it. This is Stephen Crowder when he was 23 years old, talking about marriage and talking about no sex before marriage and putting all this importance and impetus into how important marriage is. Now, I don't want to throw this in his face too much because people are allowed to make their own decisions and own choices. But I do want to say when people put themselves out publicly as a thing, like as the morality police, as the, I'm going to take this position publicly. I'm going to be known to take this position publicly. And then you prove to be a hypocrite. It is worth noting and exposing again. So this is Stephen Crowder when he was 23, being embarrassed by Amy Schumer on Fox News, talking about no sex before marriage in relation to how important it is within marriage.
If you really want to argue for abstinence, you can stop the argument and be abstinent, don't get sick and die.
Yeah.
But, I can say from personal experience that it does build a bond of trust. Constantly you hear women, how often do you hear, well, don't you trust me? It's like, no, you slept with me on the first date. So of course I don't trust you.
It's that old thing, like I wouldn't join a club that would let me into that club.
Right.
It's,
exactly.
She's going to sleep
What
with me.
the
but she'll sleep
fuck?
with
Because I'm
anybody.
Canadian, they won't let me in.
Yeah.
Except for Canadian Club Ginger Ale.
Amy, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yes, but also, you know, if I sleep with a guy on the first date, usually if a guy holds my hand, he's going to wind up. So here's the thing. I don't think that women should use sex as a bargaining chip, and a lot of them do. If I want to sleep with someone, I do it, and I am a monogamous slut. Can I say that on air?
Yeah, I think you can.
Great.
That's not what we're worried about.
But what I'm saying is, I have a higher risk of disease. I also have a much higher risk of fun.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is to prove my point by saying that you don't think it should be used as a bargaining tool.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as the kind of point of the column is that abstinence is the one taboo issue regarding sex. I mean, it's like, oh, be a dirty stand-up comic. You're cracking new ground there, Copernicus. But once you talk about abstinence, everyone all of a sudden, they put you, like, right now, we have to talk about it. Because who is this kid who's talking about abstinence who,
Well, it's who's this kid who's, 23. You don't know who you're going to be sexually yet. So to talk about it with such authority and arrogance.
I don't know who I'm going to be what?
You don't know who you're going to be sexually yet. You're going to be into really weird things in about a decade.
Oh, I have no doubt. I have no doubt. Yeah.
Trust me. And the thing is, it doesn't.
But I
there
really
should be
do
no.
want to do.
But there should be no confidence. You slip by the dirty comedian thing. But honestly, you call yourself a comedian, but you don't do it that much. Like I go fishing a couple times a year, but I don't introduce myself on TV as a fisherman.
Well, this is not really personal for a concept about abstinence. I'm
No,
saying the
but
whole
what I'm
point
saying
is
is
that
there's
someone
no
can get up on
way.
stage, we even talk about it in the column, and talk about anything dirty that they want. But the second you mention abstinence, people, they pucker with discomfort, like, oh no, we can't talk about this, and you're vilified as judgmental.
It's not funny.
Statistically, it's the healthiest thing to do. It is conducive towards a better marriage by a 25% spread, both physically.
It only takes
physically.
that one person, though, and there's no contract that the person's not going to cheat on you because they're abstinent. She could
There is
fall
no
in love
contract.
with somebody
Well, actually,
else.
there is a contract. That's what a
She
marriage
could
is.
fall.
It's a contract.
It's a contract that more than 60% of people break.
No, actually, that's not true. Actually, if you even look at the new U.S. Census Bureau statistics, more than 70% of first-time marriages last.
More than 70% of first-time marriages last. That's where we're going to leave that one out on.
Oh my God, he's been insufferable his whole life.
Yeah,
Like I'm not Amy Schumer's biggest fan by a long stretch, but
yeah.
Oh, she was good there.
And then this was a piece that he wrote for Fox News, right? This is not the piece I was talking about, but it's called "I'm a Guy and I'll Never Badmouth My Wife." This is from him. Right, and he basically goes through it. Let me read a bit out for you. He goes, men get together and they complain about their wives because that's what they feel they're supposed to do. It's as phony as your frat buddy's stupid tribal tattoos, and everybody knows it. Yet they do it anyway, because it's just like the dummies who took up smoking to fit back in at high school. These guys want to make sure that they have a spot on the cool kids table. He goes on to say, and that's him and his former wife. He goes on to say, pathetic. Here's my challenge to the real men out there. It's very simple. If you have a good marriage, talk about it. If you love your wife, say it. If some moron tells you that they're merely a newlywed or that you're still just too young to understand, correct them. Open-handed slap to the faces are preferable. Unless those of us who love our wives and thus our wives and our lives, make a conscious change to the way we speak of them, unless we begin choosing to elevate praise of our spouses instead of denigrate, there are so many people in the chat who know where this is going, we will be letting an incredibly corrosive, self-perpetuating societal meme destroy the very institution that defines our lives. He's saying he is happy to put himself on a pedestal for healthy marriages. He's actively doing it and saying we must speak well of our wives publicly. Now, off our security camera at home, it's a different story, but we'll get to that in a second. Are we willing to do that just to fit in with some gelatinous beer buddies? Finally, to those men out there who genuinely think of their wives as a pain in the ass, grow up and learn to make some better decisions. Also do some squats. Okay.
You say a pedestal. It sounds like he's building a scaffold for something else.
He is making it clear to all of us, and this is all he does in his career, in his broadcast career, is make it clear that this is his hill to die on. Marriage, importance, the way men treat women, the importance of monogamy, the importance of all that. I mean, he was talking about how much more successful a marriage can be if you're monogamous, if you don't have sex before marriage. At no point has anyone said to him, what if you tell your wife you don't love her? What if you say you're going to fucking do terrible things to her? What if you abuse her? How does that go for a successful marriage, Mr. Crowder, while you're up the front professing your Christian values and saying that you are, actively putting out there that you're an example to the rest of the world about what marriage should be? Now, This video, which many of you will have seen, has come out 3 or 4 days after we did our bit 2 Thursdays ago, right? Which is why we're wrapping it up. But I wanted to give you the full context and say, in case some of you haven't seen those other things, that this is not us picking on someone who's made a mistake. Everyone has bad marriages, bad, breakups, that kind of stuff. But this is someone who says, you can look to me as the example of a man in a marriage. I think that's it's fair for me to say that, isn't it, Chewy? That's what he's actively doing. Look,
He's
follow
held
me.
himself up as a paragon.
Follow me.
Yeah, as an example.
Follow my example. Then this was released quite soon after. Quite soon after he made that statement on his show.
I drew a boundary.
Now, the words move very quickly, but I might pause it just to read a few of them to you as we go. So that's his obviously pregnant wife right there, and he's sitting on the 8 months pregnant. He's sitting on here smoking a cigar.
No, you just did it. I drew a boundary at abusive.
I drew a boundary at abusive and cruel. And he's telling you can't take the car.
If you refuse to do wifely things, then I will go pick up the groceries.
So she's got chores to do. She's got some things to do, and he's telling her she can't take the car. She's 8 months pregnant, and he's saying to her, you can't take I'm not allowing you to take the car.
Steaks, wood pellets, my grill. I know it's an unreasonable request, but I'll go do it.
Oh, what a
How about
prick.
you first? Hillary, how do you respect the men?
How do you respect the men?
How do men receive love and respect? No. How do the men No, you're not taking the car.
Stephen,
You're not taking the car.
Stephen,
You are not
then
taking
I
the
will
car.
ask them to pick me up.
His 8 month pregnant wife right now is saying, I've got jobs to do. I'll have to get one of my friends to come and pick me up rather than use the car that is owned by this family. As he sits there and looks at his 8 month pregnant wife smoking a cigar.
Would you like me to ask?
Oh, that's right.
It's not correct, Stephen.
Get an Uber.
Okay, Stephen.
Get an Uber.
I can't.
Feeling some constraints?
Stephen.
Like, I can't
Stephen.
go. Listen to me. You want to walk out right now? Listen to me. I can't go to the gym. I can't go to my parents. I can't call my friends. I can't be home. You're going to take the car and leave me here. Hillary, just think of how boxed in you've made me.
What do you need? I'll
Oh,
get it.
what
I'll
a
be back when I'm back.
baby.
No, that doesn't work either. You'll be back when you're back. That doesn't work either.
Stephen,
Do you understand the difference between my life being set to the second and you going, I'll be back when I'm back?
Stephen,
And making it work. The only way out of this is discipline and respect.
Do you hear that one? The only way
What
out of
an
this is discipline and
absolute
respect.
Wreck.
We'll keep going.
It's the only way out of it, or we're at an impasse.
we are going to do pass.
Good. Because you can't have any discipline or respect.
You can't have any discipline and respect.
There you go. You throw your hand, you give up so easily.
I don't give up, Stephen.
Hillary,
Stephen,
you give up so easily.
I'm
I just said the only way out of this is discipline and respect. You said, then we're at an impasse.
Stephen, no, we are at an impasse, okay? I love you, but Stephen, your abuse is sick. Your abuse
Watch it.
is sick.
Now he's threatening
Watch
her.
it.
Watch it.
Fucking watch it.
I'm gonna let go. I'll get what you need me to get. And I need some space. We need to just stop engaging for a little bit. Okay? I love you. I love you very much.
I don't love you.
I
That's the
don't
big
love
problem.
you.
I've never received love from you. And the fact is, when I go, look, I need you to do A, B, C, and D, you just be disciplined about it. You go, no. But I love you more than life itself. Okay. Put on some gloves.
Okay. The put on some gloves.
No.
Do you know what that's about, Chewy? The put on some gloves. So he wanted her to walk the dog, right? And she didn't want to walk the dog because she's 8 months pregnant and she didn't want to have to deal with dog shit. I don't know, for those of you who remember, I remember cat shit being quite toxic to pregnant women. I'm assuming dog shit would be. So rather than him taking care of it, he told her, discipline and respect, walk the dog, 8 months pregnant, and put on gloves if the dog does a shit. Or for medication. Maybe it was for medication. Sorry, I could be wrong. Dog medication. So rather than him do it, he told her, 8 months pregnant, to put on some gloves. And the reason she didn't want to do that was because she was worried about, it was medication. I'm wrong with the dog shit. The dog medication could have impacted their unborn twins. And he told her to put on gloves.
Okay, more than life itself. That's not fair. That's not fair, and it's disingenuous. Hillary, you're right. We're at an impasse. Become someone, listen to me, day in and day out, worthy of a wife No, not as a wife. I didn't say as a wife.
Worthy
Yeah.
of a wife.
Hillary, come on now.
I'm not gonna engage. I'm not gonna engage anymore. I'm gonna go. I'll get text me what you need. I'll get you what you need. I love you. I'm committed to you.
Why? Well, you're not now, I guess.
Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things?
Put on some
I'm not.
gloves.
I'm not gonna.
Are you committed enough to do those things? You're not committed to anything. You're not committed to anything. You just said I love you. I'm committed to it. Walk the dogs. Put on some gloves.
And for people who are
Walk the
listening,
dogs. Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm gonna just.
Walk the dogs. Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to get the medication the dogs take? Okay, take that in.
and then for people who are listening, there's a graphic that says, as Crowder heads inside, Stephen gets angrier and angrier and by his own admission screams, "I will fuck you up," at his pregnant wife, Hillary, who then flees their home. But you know, abstinence, strong marriages, Chewy. And there's one more thing I'm going to share, but you, I don't know if you've seen much all of that.
That's the second time I've watched that, and I'm furious.
Well, what I've got also is the statement by her family as well. So we'll get to that in a second, because there are some things that were said in the explanation that we played from him, which she disputes. But Chewy, you first, sir.
That's just like, that's the perfect thing, right? That's an insight into what emotionally abusive and manipulative men are like.
Yep.
When they think they're alone. He can put on all the front of being a loving husband that respects his wife, but the moment that he thinks no one's watching, that's what it is.
Yep.
We just saw a snapshot into an extremely toxic, manipulative, emotionally abusive relationship, and it makes me feel fucking gross to have even seen that. I hope the man dies alone. I hope no one goes near him ever again.
The story has a whole bunch of other levels. You know, Candace, whatever her face is, and him are now scrapping, and you know he's fighting with Ben Shapiro's company about various things. But you know, the thing about this, it's like the MAGA universe in America, is you can look online right now, you know, for people, MAGA people being fact checked in real time, and they just get to the end of it, like we played that Jordan Klepper track a few weeks ago, where they just go, I don't care. I don't care. You know, so in this American world, you know, to be honest with you, what he's espousing, I won't say is common, but I have heard layers of before in the incredibly conservative church world. You know, serve your husband. So there'll be people out there who believe, you know, she should have done what her husband told him to do. Now, a person with an ounce of smarts or brain or anything won't believe that. But that there'll be people out there who will be a part of his life.
What? I don't understand the mindset of a man who essentially wants to put a ring on a slave, like a household servant, like this really rigid, you know, rigid gender roles, this idealized version of the fucking 50s.
Yeah.
Or something, right? The stay-at-home wife and the kids and all the domestic things done. The husband comes home from work and dinner's on the table. And Christ, was that ever true? Was that ever true?
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
Well, for Crowder,
but
as well, it's not just about the wife, because over the past week since, you know, I've been in Fiji, there's also been quite a lot of former employees coming out talking about the abusive relationship within the workplace. You know, there's a
This is my surprised face.
Yeah. And there's been quite an interesting lot of information around sort of the right-wing echo chamber and the right-wing media source in America, and NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. And more often than not, it seems like the many in the left are like, I've never signed one of these things, but in the right, they always sign them. So there's a bunch of anonymous sources. There's a bunch of, you know, people through the right of America at the moment who can't say anything, but there's things getting leaked. And it's a little bit like when we had that conversation, we were going to talk about Kiri tonight. But, you know, when you get 10 people saying the same thing, even if they're all anonymous, you put credibility in it, you know? So shall I get to this bit about what her response was? Because he said some things there like she was putting the boot into his neck. Yeah, right. That was what he said. I've had a boot on my neck in this divorce. This story here, Stephen Crowder's wife claims he suffered mental and emotional abuse from the political commentator for years as she hid it from friends and family and tried to save their marriage for the sake of their unborn children. The statement from Hillary's family said she is currently living alone in Dallas, apart from her from her family and support system in Michigan, and is focused on taking care of her young children. She is not prepared at this time to speak about her divorce becoming public or the misleading statements made by Stephen about their relationship, it said. In June of 2021, Stephen left their home to pursue elective surgery. That was the chest thing. Hillary urged him to get the help he needed to address his abuse, with the hope that their marriage could be saved and they could peacefully live together as a family. Instead, Stephen refused to do so and chose not to be with his wife during the birth of their twin children. After the birth, Stephen bought a townhouse and left their home permanently. Now, the way this story is being told, and we've got to take this with the same grain of salt as the other one, is he instigated it. The way he told the story is he's had a boot on his neck. But the way that she tells the story is he actually instigated this. Hillary was unaware that Stephen had hired a divorce attorney, i.e. he was the first to do it, and asked his assistant to cut Hillary off financially. There is significant documentation substantiating these facts. Well, that's what the statement says. That's not what I'm saying. That's what the statement says. We hope that Stephen will cease speaking publicly about these personal matters in an untruthful manner. We also look forward to there being full transparency in the legal process so there is fairness and accountability for the actions that caused the divorce and to ensure the outcome is what is in the best interest of the young children. So that's a snippet or certainly a story about what she said about him talking about it publicly and a bit more about what happened. Now, we don't know the truth. Possibly somewhere in the middle is where it's going to be, but he certainly said it was all about her and she's certainly saying it's all about him. And even though we don't know, I think most people watching, and certainly probably two people presenting right now, would probably be pretty confident after seeing what we saw, which side we'd err on at the very least, Chewy.
Which again is shocking. This stuff just drives me nuts. I mean, people are horrible to each other in all kinds of ways, and sometimes those people live together and say that they love each other for a bit as well. But when it gets to this point, like when he was just being vicious, and it was just a barrage of you don't have any options. It was about control.
Yeah.
And I think that's where that yucky feeling comes from. And I think as far as a puzzle piece of where a lot of people that are in this sort of sphere of influence of people like Stephen Crowder and Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate and all of that sort of stuff, if everybody's got to fit in their little box, right? There can't be any aberration from the roles that we're all set, whether that's rigid male-female, rigid husband-wife, rigid religious beliefs, all of that sort of stuff. They all want to put us in a little box.
That they don't want to
can
live
I
in.
say
remember that they don't want to live in.
No,
they want to put us in it, but they don't want to live in it.
Do as I say, not as I do. Just let the grift keep going.
Yep.
And all of these people need to be given a hearty fuck you and pointed directly at the sea, a place that they should depart to at their soonest convenience.
Yeah.
I fucking hate them.
So that was the wrap up of that part of that story. I wanted to do it. I know that many of you would have seen most of that before. Maybe you haven't seen all of it, and so you're now up to date. And to be honest with you, it's bigger than Stephen Crowder. It's about two things. Now, I'm not going to say it's about the right, because there are abusive people on the left. There are authoritarians on the left. There are violent people on the left. So it's not about him. It is about, and this might be my bias and my echo chamber coming through, that so often when these things come out on the right, they seem to be narcissistic, bully type people, whoever it is, especially within the media. Now, again, I'm not saying it doesn't happen on the left, but it appears to me to be more common on the right. Happy to be proven wrong there. It could be equally spread. Maybe, as I said, that's my bias coming out. But it's definitely about someone who says, this is what I'm about. You know, this is what I'm about. I'm about marriage. I'm about never speaking ill of. Now, think about that now that I've reread that article about I won't speak ill of my wife. I'm about, doing the right things. A strong marriage is a strong foundation. Husband, wife, and kids, the center of the nuclear family, all those things. And then you've got someone saying, I'm going to fucking destroy you, whatever he said to her inside the house, which he's admitted to. And that's what it's about. Hypocrisy. always needs to be pulled out and pointed out. If people still choose to then follow the hypocrite, can't do anything about that, but you can lead a horse to water, right? You just can't make them drink. Anyone here, anyone watching this, anyone hearing this now thinks that Stephen Crowder is anything other than a narcissistic piece of shit, then you need your head read. A narcissistic bullying piece of shit with a predisposition for physical violence. Didn't say he was physically violent, but the words that he was using were certainly leading towards a violent outcome. Then you are deluded. And if you're then happy to support that person and what they do and say and believe the other 80% of the stuff they're saying, then you're an idiot. But we need to put it out there. We need to show people, and then the ball's in your court. Fair, Chewy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, let's wrap up tonight with having a look. And I know that you want to talk about the coronation a bit. We're kind of already at an hour, which is fine. I said to Chewy this afternoon, I went, I'm still not 100%. Maybe we should just do a couple of
just do a
tonight.
Sneaky half hour.
Yeah, it's not going to happen, is it? Story from BBC over the weekend. Really interesting commentary from Chris Hipkins here. About reparations. I don't know if that's the correct word in this context, but the same sort of thing. Treaty settlements and what should the king do? And B, about New Zealand becoming a republic to the BBC. So this conversation is happening in the UK over the weekend.
Some of the Indigenous leaders from your country have signed an open letter to King Charles asking for an apology, asking for reparations, an apology for colonialism and slavery. Do you think the British monarchy should apologise for past mistakes?
Well, in instances where a wrong has been established and it's and a redress has been agreed, an apology from the Crown, in some cases delivered by the Crown, has been included within that. I don't think you can do that in a non-specific way. I actually think it's more important and more meaningful if you're actually looking at specific harm done to specific groups of people. And we've got a process in New Zealand. The Treaty of Waitangi was our founding.
It seems a pretty easy answer, isn't it? Because she said, apologise for mistakes. Okay, Chewy, I accidentally backed into your car. Fuck, I'm not going to apologise. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a mistake. It's an error. You did wrong. You apologise. It seems to be a very big conversation as to should we, shouldn't we? But I just and I know it's more it's not as simple as I'm making it, but on its most simplistic level, you do wrong, you apologise.
Document as a country, and we've got a process for reconciling breaches of the Treaty of Waitangi, and there were plenty of them. And over time, we're working through a process. It's taken several decades, and we're not finished yet. But we do work through identifying what those breaches were, what the harm caused by them was, actually creating a record of that, and in many cases the redress includes a full apology, and that can come from the Crown.
You've been a Republican, I think, all your life. You don't think the monarchy should exist?
Well, it's not that I don't think the monarchy should exist. I describe myself as a technical Republican. Okay. So if you were going to write a constitution for New Zealand, who would be the head of state? In my mind, it would be nice to have someone who is in New Zealand to be head of state. If I was designing a system, this wouldn't be the system that I was going to design.
So there you go. Let me just whack that down and turn that off. Chewy, you seem to have a fan base in the chat right now. Desperate to hear your views on the monarchy. But I think that was a really good response from Hipkins, because he's basically saying my position is I would go Republican. He didn't use those words as bluntly. He said what he didn't say in that clip, which I talked about earlier in the show, in that interview, he also said, but there's not the feeling in New Zealand to go Republic right now. So he's saying he can have a position as the Prime Minister, that would be his ideal, but the population don't feel the same with him as a majority. So it's sort of a moot point. I'm paraphrasing, but
I don't know about that. I don't know about that at all. I think he's being a little bit soft on it. I think that the overall majority don't really see the point in having this obscenely wealthy, slightly inbred family from across the world, chosen apparently by God to be our head of state. Like, it makes no sense. But at the same time, I think a lot of New Zealanders are pragmatists and going, well, in the order of business today, it's pretty low down on my give a fuck list.
Yeah, that'd be me.
It's like, I don't like the idea of somebody else's flag on our flag. And we saw what happened when someone made that an issue. They completely bollocks it all up.
Kiwi rise.
Yeah. As an aside, I saw someone, there's a Kiwi over fighting in Ukraine who was using that as his battle flag. Good man. Yeah, like I don't think it really needs to be as complicated as it is. David in the chat is just mentioning, look, you just cut the ties to the UK much in the same way that we did with the Privy Council. The Governor General becomes the head of state. We keep a Prime Minister. We don't have a president, and the New Zealand government steps into the role of the Crown, as they already are doing for the Treaty of Waitangi and that sort of thing. It's shifting the deck chairs around. It doesn't really change that much as far as our day-to-day here in New Zealand. But yeah, I think when you look at it, when you look at the Commonwealth and go, well, really, why were we part of the Commonwealth? Well, it was colonization, and it was keeping Britain warm, wealthy, and fed, and it was very much one-way traffic. Last time I went to England, I had to stand in the same queue as everybody else from all the other countries. What's the point of the Commonwealth if I can't skip the queue? So yeah, I think the time for that sort of thing and becoming, the monarchy is done. I think a lot of the people in Britain are even looking at this going, well, this is pretty fucking weird, let's be honest. Yeah. Like, did you watch the coronation?
Yeah. No, to be honest,
no, I saw clips. It just seemed mental.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it, I guess, and you talk about colonization, and that's probably the big thing for me. It's like, what does it mean to people who have been significantly impacted by it in their ancestry? And I guess I can lay claim to that a little bit, because my family's from Northern Ireland, like so my mother had cousins in the IRA, right? So my grandmother grew up on the Falls Road. Now, if you know Belfast at all, if you know the Northern Ireland, the Troubles, the Falls Road was literally the centre of the IRA Troubles. Like that would be, yeah. So that's where my grandmother grew up, on that road, on the Falls Road. And so I do have some skin in the game, as in, the English split my country in two, well, my ancestors' country in two. So I feel it that way. And that doesn't make me feel good personally about the Crown in that way, but I don't feel as aggrieved as, for example, Māori do, or Indigenous people who have been colonised and then had their culture smashed and disappeared, and are now at the bottom of the pecking order, and all the statistics that prove health or finances or whatever part of society. So what I guess I'm saying is, I acknowledge that my response is a bit flippant, because I'm not one of the people who's massively impacted by it, although I could choose to be impacted by my Irish ancestry if I wanted to be. But I kind of just go, I don't think about the monarchy every day. It doesn't impact me every day. It's not a part of my life every day. I will watch the weddings, and I'm interested over there. And if I go to London, I'll certainly be checking out Buckingham Palace. And it just seems to me to be, let's put it this way. The monarchy of the 1800s, I think, is an abomination on the face of the planet. The monarchy in 2023 seems to be like a plate you hang on the wall, and a palace that you visit when you're over there, and a visit by by a king or queen, much like it would be if it was the American president coming through. The country doesn't really treat it much differently. So I'm a bit like, go Republic, sure. Don't go Republic, whatever. I don't really... I'm in those. I'm in that. It's way down the pecking order for me. That's where I am.
They're talking about a state visit for Charles.
Yeah.
And traditionally, when it comes to state visits, we pay for it. Now, I don't want to see a 75-year-old man with a funny hat come here, and I pay for it. Like the obscene gathering of wealth. Like, there's someone in the chat saying, I think Charles will be a good king. He likes plants, and he seems a decent man. Maybe. I don't hate the man. I hate the institution. I hate the fact that it is this gathering of property and obscene wealth, like more than anybody could ever need, and it's for a figurehead. It makes no difference. It's like,
I'm with you. No,
it's like the royal family is Britain's Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, but that's kind of what I'm saying. That's sort of what I'm saying. It's like it seems at the moment. I hear you on all of that, and I agree. And I think, I'm in the process of writing a piece to respond to Piers Morgan talking about, should there be reparations or should they apologise? And the thing that he's either too stupid to understand or chooses not to go at is you only have to go back about 4 generations before kind of institutional wealth impacts you today. So therefore, if it takes 4 generations for institutional wealth, so in other words, if your father, grandfather, so your great-great-grandfather was wealthy, that's all it takes for you to be wealthy today, statistically speaking. Therefore, if your great-great-great-great-great-grandfather was in slavery or was 1 generation outside of slavery, it obviously makes complete sense that institutional poverty comes your way as well. And I'm just in the process of putting this all together now to do it as a piece. And so I'm 100% with you on that. And that's why I guess I'm trying not to be flippant by going in 2023, because I do believe in apologies and I believe in reparations without question whatsoever. But for me, I just kind of go, it's again, if I was able to fix all of the things in New Zealand that's wrong with New Zealand, all of the issues, it probably wouldn't be in the top 100 things that I'd be trying to say.
100. Yeah.
So that's sort of where I sit.
If we can solve it quick and easily, that'd be great. And if it's just writing a letter to Charles going, no thanks, we're out.
I guess the one thing I disagree with you on, because if we're going to do it, I'd want to do it properly. And I'd want to start to have the conversation around a president that was more than just a figurehead. I mean, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't, if you're going to do it, if you're going to go republic, why wouldn't you have a president that was the head of the government that wasn't just a figurehead? Because the way that I think you kind of said it, but others have said it, is like just make the governor general the presidential position, and it's a ceremonial position. Why? I'd want to have that full conversation. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. One other sort of around the conversation about the coronation and that sort of thing. Did you know where we got the term looting or to loot?
It's not to do with a musical instrument.
No. It is from a Hindi word meaning to rob,
right?
And it entered the English language because of what Britain did to India.
Sheesh.
Some of the jewels in that fancy hat that he's got, was literally stolen from the raid on a fortress in India. And a lot of people have been focusing on the Star of Africa, the something like a 500 carat diamond in the staff. Yeah. And the debate over what does it really mean that said that it was gifted by the colonial leadership of South Africa. South Africa is a country that's really struggling, and I'm sure they could make $500 million go really far.
I saw the item on One News. I didn't see the actual coronation, but because the reporter was standing in front of like a big sculpture of the crown, and they said something like, a lot of people have come to check out this crown because they didn't have $4 billion for one of their own. Is the crown worth like because he only wears it once in his life. He puts it on his head to get coronated, right? And then he goes back to the tower. Is it worth $4 billion or something ridiculous?
Well, I don't know about the breakdown, but I could believe it. Like, I mean, the one jewel in the scepter, the Great Star of Africa, I think they call it the Cullinan diamond now, is $500 million on its own.
Here you go, big number, $4 billion. That's how much the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors estimated the crown jewels are worth in 2019, using the sale of the French crown jewels in 1887 and the sale of the late Princess Margaret's jewellery in 2006 as comparison. So that crown, well, it says the crown jewel, so that's more than just the crown. That's probably the scepter and stuff as well.
Yeah, the whole collection. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, for a hat that he wears once, it's not like smart casual wear. It's ultra formal wear. It just seems so stupid. And I mean, England's going through it at the moment. People can't pay their heating bills or their food bills. Lots of people doing it tough. And people seem to have latched onto this as like, see, we're still a proper empire, it's still a proper kingdom. It's as the kids say, it's mad cringe.
Mad cringe. What's not mad cringe though is supporting us in what we do.
So smooth.
Like that one.
And so smooth.
While I do this pitch, you can have a look at the chats to see if we want to wrap up with a few chats before we head off for the night. I should be in bed by now. Thank you to our patrons. Thank you for being involved. If you want to get alongside us, what we do, like this riveting conversation you've all heard tonight or tomorrow or the next day if you're listening on demand or online, then head to patreon.com/Big Hairy News. Love to have you on board. Literally, as I said earlier in the show, your $5 does make a big difference, and it literally does. It helps us, pay for some of the things that we're doing, and we bring all our offerings into the storehouse, as my old Catholic upbringing used to tell me, and then with those small offerings, we can do something with them to put this on for you right through the year. And it's going to be a big year. So it'll be good to have you on board. Anyway, Chewy, you've started about 355 text messages
I
there.
have. We just kept on talking. Emma, we need a T-centered approach to the reform. We shouldn't model ourselves completely off other republics.
Yep.
Correct. Simple says, monarchy is built on power, lies, and violence. They're still abusing their power today. Charles has been selling citizenship and titles for huge donations to his charities and then gets backhanders.
Wow.
A man who was close personal friend to Jimmy Savile and his younger brother, was good mates with Jeffrey Epstein, is now our head of state. Not my pervert.
That's a pretty heavy list there to be involved with. Yep, gotcha.
Off the top rope with comments from Gary. I like it. Keep that energy. So Simple said they pay no tax. Monarchy is built on power, lies, and violence. They actually, I think they do pay income tax. There
will be tax generated.
That was a change
from them.
that Elizabeth
Yeah.
changed that. Traditionally, they've never paid income tax. Now I think they do, which just sounds like a fig leaf. When you've got.
But I'm sure.
So
but I'm sure all the
$1
people they pay income tax. The actual Queen or whatever may not. But remember, they might have 10,000 staff. All those staff will pay income tax. I'm not defending them, but I'm just saying that there will be tax generated from the monarchy, even if the monarchy aren't doing their fair share. So it won't be zero balance. It might not be enough, but it won't be zero.
Don't care for it. Unnecessary. You can just wear a normal hat, sit on a normal chair, live in a normal house. Yes, from the top of the show, Simon says I'm a very committed Republican myself. The big question here from Gareth: if we did go Republic and we remove the King or Queen from our banknotes, what should we replace them with? And my answer to that is more birds. All of our money should be birds. Problem solved. I can solve all these things.
The thing that's fantastic about birds is, that's basically all we had. What did we have? We had the seal and we had a bat as mammals, and then we just had birds. Oh, obviously reptiles, birds and reptiles. So that's kind of cool way to also they look beautiful, and it's a throwback to kind of OG Aotearoa.
I like the fact that we have a native animal, and then apart from the Queen on the 20, a person from a notable person from this country, and I would dearly love to wade into a debate about whose face should be on the 20 from now on. I have so many suggestions. Some of them are ridiculous. Some of them are ridiculous. Some of them I'll fight to the death on.
Did you see Richie McCaw walking down the aisle?
He's not going on the money.
No, but I'm saying he was one of the people walking down the aisle of the coronation. If he gets there, maybe he should be on the money. Richie.
Oh, you're going to make me find that terrible picture of him and Luxon posing together.
Oh, no, let's not do that.
No.
In the penguin suits.
And the ill-fitting pants, because Luxon doesn't know how to dress himself for a fancy occasion.
What else? Anything else in the chats?
There are lots of comments about Crowder, Christo-fascists.
Yeah.
He didn't want a slave. Oh, didn't want a wife. He wants a slave.
I've got one here. Thingy on the 20.
I will. Yes, with the one eye.
Only with the one eye. Yeah.
Yeah. Plano Walk says, "You say you love me, but do you have a source for that claim?"
Very good.
Crowder's an egomaniac.
I love my wife. Prove me wrong.
Yep. She's so desperately attempting to placate him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just gross. Gross. Fuck Stephen Crowder.
Fuck him right in the ear.
Yep.
It's been fascinating watching the last few. I don't watch him, but I get clips, especially Sam Cedar. He's been getting into him pretty hardcore. Him and Emma Vigland, I think it is, isn't it? Over the last few days, and just watching them just glee. I mean, I guess there's this thing is I do try and be empathetic, but when someone basically punches you in the face metaphorically, when they get punched in the face, there is an element of joy that comes with that. You know, if people are just wrong and they've done something wrong and, you know, they're deluded or whatever, it's different. But when it's a little bit like the anti-vaxxers. Like, I have empathy for people who have been sucked in by the instigators at the top, but I have very little empathy, if any, for the instigators, because they're the ones who are sucking the other ones in. He's an instigator. It's very, very difficult to have any empathy for the instigator. Oh, fuck off. Take it off.
I am going to nationalise the $5 note.
All right. Hey, well, listen, thank you so much for all your kind words and stuff over the last week. It's been actually kind of tough. And look, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Chewy will tell you this. I do have an element of sort of drama queenness about me, and I'm like, what if we're building our audience and no one comes back on the Monday? What do? We have to keep building. So it's just been lovely to see you all here, hanging out and just chilling. It's been really good. And tonight's been a bit of a different show because, you know, we did have to dunk a little bit on Stephen Crowder, which is old news, and we did have to tell you what had happened with me. But from tomorrow, what we actually thought is, like, we've got the fallout at the Green Party, we've got obviously the defections in the Labour Party, we've got a new US shooting. They're all pretty big stories that we'd normally talk about, but because we were off when they were on, what we might do is kind of incorporate one of them per night for the next 3 nights. So it won't be the up-to-date news, but we'll do a couple of news stories from the day, and then we might have a look at some of those big stories that we missed last week. So stick around for those. Anything else we want to leave off with, Chewy? But thank you for everyone's comments. It's been really nice.
I think we've covered everything that we can.
Yeah. All right. It was very strange coming down to my studio today. I realised I hadn't been in my studio since the Patreon meetup on the Saturday morning. So for me, that Saturday to Saturday is 7 days. Sunday, 8 days. Monday, so I hadn't been in here for 9 days. I hadn't walked in the room. So it was a very strange feeling for me, but it's lovely to be back. And look, I hope what you get from us now, although there are some nights coming up that I'm not going to be around. I've got a child doing a performance at a theatre show, which I will be going to, but pretty much I can see us now running up to the election and just getting into it. And yep, I've had a week off. I actually feel like I had a holiday, Chewy. As weird as it sounds, because I was pretty bad up until Saturday, just sitting and doing nothing and watching and allowing other people to do stuff. Like, you know, my partner, who's all of 60 kilos, little small woman that she is, you know, going downstairs and getting the firewood, and I'm just like, yep, I'm not getting it. I can't do any lifting for 2 weeks. But just allowing
Were you
people
smoking a cigar at the time?
I wasn't, and I didn't have my Ring camera on. But what I'm saying is, you know, it sounds really weird, but almost being sort of brave enough to allow other people to do stuff, because that's not our nature. You know, we jump up and help and we do things, but actually taking a proper stop has actually felt like a bit of a break, even though 3/4 of it I was feeling pretty rough.
I didn't earn it, but I'm glad to take it.
Yeah.
I do have one final thought. I've
right,
thought of it before we leave.
All right.
You know what's not cool, Bobby?
Hang on, the banner's in the way. Wait, we should do that again and be slicker. Okay, here we go.
You know what's not cool, Bobby? Simping for billionaires on the internet. Royal family, Elon Musk, any of them.
Elon Musk's another story we didn't do last week, threatening to take NPR's badge away from them because they weren't tweeting. So if you're not going to tweet, I'm now going to take it off you. What a tool.
We're going to pull the plug or we'll keep going.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Fano. I really appreciate you being back with us tonight. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. for another edition. As I said, we'll cover off some of the big stories from last week. We'll do whatever's coming up in the news in the next few days as well. And there are some things in the background that we're working on also. So thank you. Lovely to see you all tonight. Thank you for being with us. And we will catch you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. I can feel my voice just starting to go as well. For another edition of Big Hairy News. Night, team.